Just tout the class with Cheryl King, in case you have not heard, there are changes to to the GA art form, the mid-year changes, they are up, they are happening, and Cheryl is here to teach you all about them. I know she had a class, with you all,
It was last Thursday.
last week, and if you missed it, there's a Zoom class on the 23rd.
Oh, that's good,
So
okay.
there's a Zoom as well, so check out that link so that you can get her that way, because I know y'all are excited to hear, have you heard that there was a change to everyone's favorite, association form? Woo! Who's excited about that? No, we're excited. Now if it's asking you, instead of just, remember before you had to figure out annually what the cost was? Now you don't. Now you can just put in the number and you can say that number is, and you have the choices. Is it monthly, quarterly, annually, grouped? Little boxes, you can check, that's always good. I don't know about y'all, I am calling right now, all the closings that we're dealing with are the 4Ds. Death, divorce, debt and other destruction is what I'm calling it. So, when we're getting title in, I'm just saying, damn it.
The damn it closes.
I am just telling you, when we are getting title in, they are a mess. So, there have been a lot of divorces, there have been a lot of deaths, that's what we're seeing a lot on title. And so, if you guys have knowledge of that, like, give us a heads up. Like, there is I had one the other day, and it was not y'all, bless you, it was not you, but it was, an agent who said, well, I knew when I submitted this contract to you that these people hadn't paid their mortgage in 18 months. And I said, well, that's the kind of information that we need up front. Because those are the kind of payoffs that are gonna take, they were telling us that was gonna take 45 days to give us a payoff. You all know, I mean, most lenders, when we see Planet Home lending, we know we can get that in 24 hours. So when we saw Planet Home lending, we didn't care. But had we known it had been 18 months that they hadn't made their payment, we would have gotten on that. So there was a delay in closing, so that's the kind of stuff, because that's another D, delay, and we don't want those. So help us help you. Anybody have any questions that they're dealing with, or anything that I can help you with?
So question yesterday, this goes to your debt. We represent the sellers. We did not know that the sellers had some sort of second. Are they,
A second mortgage.
Or the sellers didn't realize it was attached to the house. So the sellers are short 14 grand. The sellers have the money. Do they have to, if they have the money in an account, are they still obligated to close if they have the money? Because our sellers are saying they don't want to close. Because they're not gonna bring anything to the closing table.
I am not Cheryl King. I think they do have to close.
Yeah, I think they do.
They owe the rent.
So these sellers are short 14 grand.
Yeah.
Not really.
They have the money, but they're saying that they're not coming to the closing
It's
table.
it's not a title issue, they're not in breach because of title.
Okay,
And they can cure it,
okay.
but again, I am not a judge, so I don't know, if, because that's specific performance.
Okay. But I know they'd be in trouble for that, but.
They can be sued for the commission though, right? So, yeah. Okay. Nobody likes that, but that's what you're dealing with. And also, how do you forget a second mortgage?
Well, it could be something like.
Yeah, a Georgia Dream.
Dream loan
But-
was a solid
No,
second,
it was a mortgage relief grant that she got during COVID.
that was the other one, and
She
then
thought it was a grant, and she just got $22,000 for free.
they just rolled it to the back.
Yeah.
Sign me up.
Yeah,
I had a seller last month that didn't know, somehow forgot that they had an SBA loan, small business loan.
Attached to the house.
And where the house was the
Yeah, collateral.
so they didn't get anything, they thought they were getting 370 grand, and they're like, nope, you get nothing, SBA's taking it all.
Oh, wow.
Ooh.
It's been fun.
That would change.
So speaking with the agent yesterday, we've got to go back, we're heading back into that era, time of business. If you're on a listing appointment, you've got to ask 7 ways to Sunday.
Yeah.
If there's a second, you've got to ask it at least 7 different ways.
That's interesting though.
Yeah.
But even, so that's one of the, disclosures or affidavits we have signed at closing. Do you have, and maybe that's the question.
Right.
Did you file for any COVID relief? That is a big question.
might be a
Did
way
you
to
file for
ask
any
it.
COVID relief? Did you take, like, that's a
Yeah.
COVID relief, use that because that's gonna be a signal in the listing in your listing presentation.
Even equity lines of credit, they're attached to the house.
So, yeah, so many times people forget about their equity lines, cause and a lot of times those don't have a balance, but they just might be sitting there and have to be closed out. And people don't realize there's often a fee for closing them out.
Right. In a situational, like with the living where there's a large lien attached,
Yeah,
can that lien be put on the individual and detached from the property?
that's up to the lender. That's up to the lender. But I'm also seeing a lot of liens. I've had 3 this week that were Discover Bank, that, these people ran up credit, and Discover Bank was tenacious. This one got filed in 2003, and they have refiled every 7 years to keep this thing current. And the person that it's against and their property, they died 6 years ago, but now daughter is finally settling, and they are enforcing the lien. 4 years, yeah, so
It's crazy.
it is crazy out there. So as soon as you know about that kind of stuff, give us the red flag and we'll get on it.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Thanks, y'all. All right,
Taylor, you're up, baby.
go Tay, go Tay.
Hi, everyone.
Hey.
My name is Taylor Rogowski, and today I'm going to take it down a notch and get a little real. Today I'm going to talk about something very serious, something that's affecting us every single day that I'm sure we're all thinking about, especially in this current climate, and that is heating, AC, and ductwork, also known as your HVAC or HVAC, however you choose to approach the acronym. Now, I'm going to spend my time talking about some big wins, some cautionary tales, and I'm going to soapbox a little bit. So let's dive in and see. Okay, but for real, the number one reason my husband and I have a First American Home Warranty on our home is because of our HVAC coverage. We have 2 26-year-old HVAC systems, and our coverage is outstanding. So I just sit back and watch as customers constantly are saving sometimes tens of thousands of dollars on their HVAC coverage, right? So there's that part of it. Now, I had an agent who had her condenser replaced, for example, right? And her out-of-pocket costs were $600, and she was mad. She didn't want to pay anything other than the service fee. So she goes outside the warranty, gets 3 quotes from these HVAC companies. All 3 of them quoted her between $4,000 and $5,000 to do the same job we're going to do for $600. So she came back to us, right? I had another agent, actually out of this office, who had their condenser replaced. And other than the service fee, they paid nothing. I don't know how that happened, but hey, we're just going to run with that. I also talked to a ton of your buyers, right? This buyer I talked to during the transaction. 2 months later, his HVAC goes out. He had to have his condenser, refrigerant lines, and his evac coils replaced. So essentially, in a brand new HVAC system, minus the air handler, because we do not replace things that aren't broken, his out-of-pocket costs were $940. He was mad. He wanted that air handler replaced, which again, we don't replace things that aren't broken. He goes outside the warranty, gets a quote for $13,000. So we say, dude, get everything basically replaced for $940, and then when that air handler is replaced, it's gonna cost you nothing, because we already have a brand new HVAC system with it, right? So now, as I enter the cautionary tale phase, I'm gonna set the stage, okay? With the EPA mandate, right? So HVAC manufacturers are only producing the new systems, okay, the parts and pieces. The reason for this, there are 2 new refrigerants that have come out that are phasing out R22 and R410A over the next 11 years. You heard that correctly. They estimate the year of completion to be around the year 2036. Now, all that to say, and this is a 2-parter. Number 1, we've got time. No matter what that home inspection report says about R22 or some Joe Schmo HVAC company says about you need to go ahead and replace that system because it's got R22 in it. It's fine. That being said, as R22 becomes smaller in supply, the price of it is going to skyrocket. We are already seeing in other territories in the US where it is cheaper to replace the entire HVAC system with the new systems rather than continue working with R22 because it is so expensive. So all that to say, it is more important than ever, right? To at least present the home warranty to every single one of your clients. I met another agent, cautionary tale section. She and her husband just financed a $30,000 HVAC system. Wait a minute, we don't know what it did, right? Maybe it serves ice cream, files your taxes, reads bedtime stories to your children at night, right? But she did tell me that this HVAC company gave her 10 years, no interest, so cool, right? Now, at the same time, as I've told that story, other agents have said, oh, I just financed a $20,000. My best friend just financed a $24,000, right? And here's the thing. We have to give clients the chance to protect themselves, right? Because you know as well as I do, it is a rare privilege these days to live without fear of the $13,000, and as we now know is possible, $30,000 HVAC bill. And I get it. I know that some of you have long-standing, meaningful relationships with some truly extraordinary home warranty reps. All that I'm asking is that you offer yet another meaningful, extraordinary choice to your clients. So, just to recap, pun intended, on our HVAC coverage, we have no cap on the HVAC coverage, meaning there is no limit on the parts of the HVAC that are covered. We also have no cap on refrigerant, and we do not care how old your system is, namely the HVAC that is near the end of its life. Guess what? It's gonna be covered. Look, y'all, I've told this joke 50 times. My great-great-aunt Lois lived to be 102. She was near the end of her life for decades. So it's all relative, right? So there's no limit on age, size, or number of systems. And finally, a First American home warranty comes with a local rep. A joyful, relatively funny, caring, dependable, a rep who actually answers her phone so she can answer your questions, and who has a charming tendency to overshare. Bottom line, give me a chance. You know what? Let's take it slow. Give me one. I have such a good feeling about how this is going to turn out, and you'll never guess this, right? This is happening again. I am currently taking orders right now. I mean, can you believe the timing? This can't be a coincidence here. So if you have a listing, contract, or recently closed home that still needs a great home warranty, call me. And I have a $50 off promo, Flex, that I can use to your advantage. So thank you for coming to my TED Talk.
Thank you for breakfast. Any questions for Taylor?
Oh, yes, I have parts too for that.
How much is your pre-list warranty?
I'm so glad you asked that. It's like a softball toss. It is free, or as my company wants me to say, it's complimentary. But imagine like it is supposed to be chips and salsa at a Mexican restaurant. Like we hope you order the entree, which is the buyer's policy, so we're willing to take the chance. Now, the seller's policy is free, but it's only the basic, right? And if you want the HVAC covered during the listing period, that is $70, but it's not paid for until closing, and there's a $1,500 limit on the seller's side. But otherwise, y'all, we've had some seller's coverage that have really like saved the day on certain transactions. But yeah, thank you for asking that question. Anyway, call me anytime, or let's go out to lunch, y'all. I'll bring you one.
Thank you for breakfast. All right, guys, we are going to now welcome our one and only Miss Paige Morgan to come up and share with us all of her knowledge. So let's give Miss Paige a warm welcome, guys.
About great things I know about,
Everything you know about.
but both of them, yeah. But I thought you were coming up here with me.
Well, I did go through it.
I
You want me
think
to?
so,
Okay,
yeah.
you want a seat? You want a chair?
Yeah, let's do the whole thing. I haven't been up here to the ta-da. Yeah. So it's kind of cool, isn't it? Is this anybody's first time in this room? No. Everybody's been here. Have you been here too?
Not in the new room, we've been in the.
Oh, yeah, of course you have. Yes, of course you have. I was talking about a couple of things with some younger people the other day, which I love talking to younger people because they only talk for a little bit. So you don't have long to think about what you're gonna say to them because they'll be gone before you remember what you wanted to say. So that's the grandmommy tip for today.
There you go.
Right. And Sherry and I were talking the other day and said, what's going on? My gosh, I mean, that is literally what we said to one another. What is going on? And we said, we're gonna find out what's going on and we're gonna talk about it in front of everybody. So, I love masterminds. If you just wanna ask us what you would like to hear from us. And we're talking today about commissions, sales, things that we can talk about within a room of licensed agents. Okay,
Sounds good.
all right. What kind of questions do you have, Miss Sherry?
I'm trying to think, yesterday, well, this is a good one, and this is a contract change. You've got a closing happening today at say
I
11,
do.
at 11.
Oh.
And
Got me
the
going, huh?
buyer does not show up. When is the buyer in default?
Midnight.
Yeah.
Midnight 01.
So with the contract changes, the first of the year, Shirley left. I think it's 8 p.m. You have to do, any extensions have to be done by 8 p.m.,
Oh, good.
the day of closing.
Oh, that has been a special stip that's been put in since we've had
Yes.
contracts and rocks. You know, I mean, really, that has always been something that polite agents will write in, but I'm glad to see that it's,
So your client, the buyer's not in default if they don't show up at 11 o'clock. They've got the rest of the day to try to get closed. Cause our seller is like, starting to scream default. It's like, technically, they're not in default yet. Even though hopefully they will show up at 11 o'clock closing.
that's right. And you know what I have found is that the one that yells the loudest, I'm not closing, I'm not coming, they're the first one here with their coffee and stirring it, going, anybody else need coffee, tea, water, what's going on? They're usually that person, but you can't depend on them to be that person. You can't depend on the cray-cray person to do anything. And that is something that I am finding more and more in the world that we're living in. And I'm sure, oh, Sherry, I can't imagine the world that you're living in with people, you know, it really used to mean something when you tell somebody you were gonna do something, and I don't wanna sound like my great-great-grandmother, but you know, it really meant something. And today it's like, well, I need to know, is that working days, hospital days, is that, you know, banking days, holidays, what are all of these
Vacation
things?
days.
Vacation days, how do we count the days for the contract? I have found, Sherry, that that's probably the hardest thing I do, is count the days, and, because you gotta go back and say, oh, wait a minute, this was business days and this was that days. Can you tell us a little bit about how that winds up?
So your contract, every time frame in your contract are calendar days. That is 7 days a week. That includes holidays. With the exception of your earnest money. And that is based on banking days. And then that banking days are Saturday, Sundays. And if it's a federal holiday, that's considered, so those days don't count. There are special steps, which I see a lot of you guys use. And, where a lot of your special stepping that your all time frames end at like 5 p.m., which I personally think that's too soon to end a time frame. But 8 p.m. I think is a realistic time to cut off a time frame at 8 p.m. I think that's realistic. I wish the contract would go to that standard all the time for everything. But none of us wanna work after 8 p.m. anyway.
Depends on time zones too.
And it does in our contract, so what time zone are all the time frames in our contract are based on what time zone? Eastern, so if you've got clients in different time zones, you've gotta make sure and remind them of that. Especially across the ocean.
In the beginning, because Sherry, you and I, were working on this a couple of weeks ago. I'm trying to see who else is out there. Anyway, when we were trying to figure out, is it
3 business days from the first day of the second day that they sat down at the table. I mean, who knows?
Right.
And I can't figure out what any of them are. But we were able to work through it and figure out what the timelines were. Timelines are giving us fits now.
No, all of a sudden, timelines are throwing people for a loop. The only thing you gotta remember that if something if you had an agreement happening today, the timeline starts tomorrow.
Say it again.
If you have an agreement, an acceptance date, a binding date, today, everything starts tomorrow. You gotta give today, cause today could be happening at 8 AM or today could be happening at 8 PM. That's the reason why you gotta always start the next day. Is when the clock starts ticking, the next day. But yeah, I'm getting a lot of that lately.
And I never did before. And is it because of the fact that we're adding days into
I
due
think that,
diligence?
yeah, we're
And
trying to-
everybody's so panicky about timelines?
Right, we're trying to stipulate too much.
Are there any questions out here about timelines that you have, other than the most important one, which is, when does it start?
And just to confirm, so you said it has include the time, for example, for due diligence time is weekdays, unless in a stipulation you include a holiday,
Due diligence or calendar days.
those are calendar days.
Everything is calendar days
It's
in your
just
contract,
what
with the
earnest money is.
exception of earnest money.
Earnest money is bank days.
So earnest money, you don't count Saturday,
It's
Sunday.
banking days, but you count Saturday?
You do not count Saturday.
It's not that. Is that
So-
gonna change?
Nope. It's in your definition section, it's section C, definition section of your purchases of agreement.
Well, I've gotta go sit down because I have no idea what you're talking about. And I'm like, where is that? When did that go in the contract?
The definition of banking days and business days, it's always been, as long as I know, it's been there.
That,
The earnest money thing. For the
According to
earnest
us.
no, I mean,
Calendar.
as far as, business days and banking days, it's always been like that, but who decides which one it is?
It's, if it's not pre-printed, then it would be something you would special step.
Okay,
Yeah, you gotta put it in there if you want it to be different,
Okay.
if it's not already pre-printed. And I will say this, and Cheryl talked about this, and I was so excited on Thursday. If you want to make things business days, for example, due diligence, in the due diligence section, let's say you want a 7-day business day, don't put BUS or BIZ. Those are not defined terms in your contract. You need to spell out the word business. Or see special stip and then spell out the word business in your special steps, if you're wanting things to be business days. Yes, sir.
Sherry, would you suggest that people just stop trying to write their own special steps on
Yes.
their own?
Thank
I
you.
feel like that's a soapbox to stand on.
It is, and I will give you another example that Cheryl gave in her class on Thursday. So guys, if y'all weren't there Thursday for her contract change class, go do it, the virtual one that's online, I think, next week. Because the changes were not enough to fill up a 3-hour period, but so she had to bring in a lot of reminders for us, which this was not a change, it was just a really good reminder, and it goes to what you're saying, Andrew, about writing special steps. She's like, quit writing the special steps, seller to provide clear title. Clear is not a defined term. What does clear mean? You want marketable title. And guess what? Marketable title is pre-printed in your contract. So when you write clear title, you're crossing out the word marketable title.
that's right.
Cause your special stip overrides the pre-printed verbiage in your contract. So she's like, quit writing your own special steps. And that's a big one that she sees quite a bit. So it goes to Andrew's point. Let's not write our own special steps. You've got a big
Yeah,
laundry list.
And tell us what happens when you do, when you write your own special step and it eliminates the pre-printed one that's in there and you have gone under contract with the one that you've written, what happens to the others that are in there?
So if you've written something that overrides what's pre-printed, then what you've written stands regardless of how poorly it's written. And you could have put your clients, buyer or seller, at a disadvantage when they probably had the advantage that was pre-printed in your contract. So we've got to be careful about writing special steps, because we could actually do a disservice to our clients by doing so.
I saw something so simple that Cheryl had pointed out to us one time, and it's called, that thing that we use on a regular basis and hopefully on a real regular basis, the purchase and sale agreement. It's not a contract, it's not it's a purchase and sale agreement. And I thought that was so funny for them to bring that up, because verbiage can mean a lot of different things. It's a different world that we live in every single day, so all the terms that we're using are different too.
I wanted to go back to the days just a minute.
Okay.
Okay.
So, cause it's happened recently with, like, where Kemp put in some emergency days. So, and that applied to everybody, like, it could extend your closing or whatever if wanting. So how, I mean, a lot of us didn't need it or use it, but how is that addressed? If your client wants to use it and like their client doesn't?
So glad you brought that up, because that was gonna be my lessons learned contract tip for today after Ms. Page is done, so we're gonna just bring it in right now. So there was a change mid-year. So let's backtrack. At the beginning of the year, they added that emergencies due to delays and things into the contract. So, and it had to be, Camp had to declare it, and it was based upon the counties, okay? And if you were already under contract and there was a state of emergency for your county, then the number of days that you're in a state of emergency, all your timeframes got extended by that number of days, including your closing. Nobody had to agree to it, nobody had to like it, it just happened automatically. If you didn't like it and your parties were in agreement, you could always amend to go back to what you originally were or another time frame. If the extension, but we just had a weird winter, and Kemp, I guess, thought the whole state was in jeopardy, so he was declaring statewide emergencies, which affected us when it really didn't need to affect us. So that was what happened in January. Mid-year, they changed it to only 8 days. So if they're,
Sherry, does that have to do with what happened in North Carolina as well?
yeah, and I think in Florida and in southern Georgia.
Okay,
Yeah.
so
Or the
are you
hurricanes.
covering that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so it started because of the hurricanes that had come through southern Georgia. So the mid-year change is regardless of how long the state of emergency is, it's 8 days per our contract. Which I really, really, really like. And in January, it was not clear whether, what happened if we're in the middle of a state of emergency and you go under contract, do you still get those days or not? We were playing devil's advocate and we were telling y'all, yes, y'all got those days. That was not the intent. So it has been defined in the mid-year changes that if you go under contract during a state of emergency, you do not get those state of emergency days. The thought process behind that is you know we're in a state of emergency, therefore you should have been writing your timeframes accordingly. So they defined that mid-year thing, and they limited it to 8 days, which is awesome. Huh?
There's a school teacher.
So if you're already under contract.
Right,
And the state of emergency comes out.
you do not get those days. Yes, you get those days.
Okay,
You get those
you
days.
get them, but if both parties agree that you don't want them, you do need to do an
You need
amendment
to do an
to
amendment.
take,
Yes.
okay.
Yes.
Alright.
But that goes to Mom's point earlier about it's a purchase and sale agreement. Like, these things are put into place, but if both parties who are a party to the contract agree to do something that's not illegal, then they're able to agree.
Not illegal, I like that one.
Right? There's a caveat, but if they wanna close, here's an old joke, if they wanna close on the moon, they can.
Right.
If that's what all parties agree to and they can make it happen, like, so it is a purchase and sale agreement that becomes a contract.
Right, Ms. Lisa?
Okay, so if that happens and they're already under contract and that state of emergency comes in, I mean, the parties might not even be aware of that. Do they have to acknowledge that in some sort of amendment or anything like that? Like, is it getting acknowledged at all, or is it just gonna get amended if something that, you know what I mean, like they just get an extension on their
The
deadline?
extension happens automatically. So if you don't wanna use those days, then you need to amend it to back to either your original time frame or another agreed upon time frame. But I mean, it's the agent's responsibility to make your clients aware that we're in a state of emergency, and this is what our contract says about it. I mean, that's our job as real estate professionals.
Unfortunately, this happens. We have back-to-back, where they declare emergencies back-to-back.
Yeah.
So you're 3 days into this emergency, right? So you've got your 8 days, we're going, you've got 5, then you add the next 8 days.
It's a great question. I will ask Michelle King. I think you get 8 days per state of emergency.
Yeah.
But we will, you know what, we will clarify that with Michelle to make sure, but that's the way I read it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was the Wild Wild West.
It was crazy. Any other thoughts about that 8 day? Because that's a big change for the mid-year contract changes, that was one of the bigger changes, was the 8 day. What do you think, Ms. Page?
Well, I think we're gonna have more and more and more and more as we go back more and more and more and more to due diligence. I think that the timelines are gonna have to stay one timeline.
Right.
And we're just not that bright. We've gotta get it down to, this is the timeline. This is for any financial contingency, any contingency that you have in the contract. But what I see happening is that it's gonna get bigger again. Remember, I remember when we first had the amendment to address concerns as opposed to just to do repairs. And it was like, people were asking for 21 days and 45 days to do an inspection. And look at that face, give me that face. But that's it, you know, if something new comes along and they're gonna ask for different things. I don't think that, we're gonna go into some craziness with the inspections, and I'm hoping that's what happens.
Right, and keep in mind too, with the amendments to address concerns, in going back to how our things are, going back to Andrew's point again, the verbiage, amendment to address concerns, it doesn't say amendment to repairs. It says amendment to address concerns. Your concern might not be a necessarily repaired item. It could be more closing costs, it could be a reduction in sales price, it could be the place that you forgot to ask for in the backyard. It could be for the home warranty or the termite that you forgot to ask for when you made your initial offer. It's an amendment to address concerns. All those things can be addressed on that one document. You don't need to do amendment to address concerns for repairs and then go do an amendment to an agreement for something else. It all can be addressed on that one
Everybody hear
document.
that? Everybody hear that?
Let's make it a little easier for us and for our clients. So I'm seeing that get mixed up quite a bit. People,
I see it all the time, that's why I jumped in there.
Yeah.
I mean, when they come, we have kind of a circle of how our contracts go before they go to you, and it's like, my goodness, how many people have to approve all this? Libby,
I haven't changed the subject, so finish your thought here.
go ahead.
I'm curious how you are, let's say you have a new listing going live this week even,
This weekend,
this week, yeah.
okay?
How are you pricing, especially compared to comps of what's pending, what sold a month ago, what sold 2 or 3 months ago? How are you making adjustments for what the market is right now?
Well, I can talk to a couple of points in that, and the first thing is to communicate with the other agents. you've got to communicate more with agents that you have either in your area or your direct competition. If you knew what everything around you was selling for and you were talking to all of those agents, good, bad, or indifferent, you're gonna have all of that knowledge. And, you know, what is it? The guy with all the knowledge? No. That's a different story.
There's a thing.
Wins.
Wins, okay, that's the end. So, what do you say?
That is, I'm throwing that out there to our listing agents out there, cause y'all are the ones out there pricing the properties. I don't know if you can necessarily go 2 months back anymore.
I don't think so.
I don't think so, I mean, I think that might be asking too much. I have seen more houses not appraised in recent months. I mean, Reed's shaking his head.
Yeah, I think there was what I heard, and y'all can tell me if it's true, there was a couple of month period last fall where prices softened with the election coming up, whatever you guys, that's not political. They softened, and so some of the houses that sold during that period of time actually are some comps now. So that was an interesting thought. I mean, I don't know empirically if that's true, but it was an interesting thought.
You know, I'm gonna say something, that I've said since I went into the real estate business, which that's a long time ago and everybody knows that, but, my dad always said that a house is worth exactly what somebody's willing to pay you for it. So if we've got appraisals that are coming in high, low, then we have people that are willing to pay exactly what they're willing to pay. Someone called me the other day, and asked me about how to do when you're in that appraisal situation. And I said, you know, first of all, you have to do your own appraisal. You have to look at it. What does your CMA say? What is the lender? Who is the lender? Why is the lender asking for a second appraisal? You know, all of those things that I'm finding more and more and more are the most important things to what we do.
Yeah, I think it goes back to communication too with your lender. And if you're the listing agent, guys, you have every right to pick up the phone and speak to that lender. And I had this situation last week where I was talking to our agent who represented the buyer, and she had not spoken to the lender yet. I mean, I'm sorry, our agent was the seller. We represented the seller, and she had not spoken to the lender yet. I was like, you have every right. The contract gives you a right to pick up the phone and have these conversations with the lender. And if you need to send the lender that verbiage in our contract, please do so to remind them that we have a right to ask them questions. Do you have a question, Mr. Ed?
No, I was just kinda.
Oh, you're scratching your ear. Lisa.
Do you feel like, with either very high-priced properties or unique properties that, you know, it's just really hard to find comps for, that you're just having to get a pre-listing appraisal? And I mean, that doesn't necessarily mean market value, but it's hard to pick a number.
I don't know, it depends on how good you are. When you pull that arm back to,
Throw that dart.
just throw the dart, I mean, you just gotta be a little careful there, but, we sell some unique homes. We have sold unique homes since the beginning of time, and especially in the north side of any town. Think about it. So the things that have sold in our community have been things that would not sell in another market, but they're selling in this crazy market that we're in. What was it that sold the other day that you and I were talking about? And it was just like, that finally sold. Oh, the house in Chimney Lakes, Springs. Everybody know that?
Yes.
It sold.
Yeah, it did. I did see that.
I mean.
Took over a year, right?
That was this last time it was listed.
That thing was crazy town.
It's been on the market for a long, long time, so never say never that it won't sell, because if that house in Chimney Springs sold, anything will sell, right, Libby?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what made that house
Was it
unique?
price? Was it
Yeah.
price that sold it?
No,
Was it price that
No.
sold that home? So,
and the market met the insane person
That loves
And-
marble, that,
that
Is it-
loves,
Is that what made the
Marble.
house was just, the house itself was unique?
it was a
Yes.
very unique house, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, and it had marble going up the wall, down the wall, around the wall, underneath the flooring, it was
Yeah,
just.
it was a marble clearance center.
Yeah. So, but you know, everybody has their own little saying in the real estate industry, and it really helps if you can keep that in the front of your mind when you're in a crazy market, when you're having more difficulty than normal with trying to price your homes, then remember always is that there is a house for everyone, and there is a price for everyone also.
Correct, yes. There's a house / price for everyone.
That's right. I remember when Ed and I moved to East Cobb, and we lived in Vinings, and I woke up in the middle of the night and I went, oh my gosh, is there a bathroom upstairs in that house? And it was like we were so excited to get the school district that we wanted. I forgot if there was a bathroom upstairs. It didn't matter to me. Those were not important things to me 20 years ago. 20 years ago, 30 years ago, those weren't the most important things to me. Today, it would be the absolute number one thing that I would look at when I walked in.
The bathroom upstairs.
But I mean, there are people that wouldn't even notice it like
Right.
us. When I was 31 years old, I did not notice that there was not a bathroom upstairs because I didn't care. I'd run up and down the steps. I just wanted a new house. I wanted to be in the Soap Creek Elementary School District, and that was more important than a bathroom on the upstairs floor, was that our children were in Soap Creek Elementary. That was it. Do you have clients like that?
yeah.
How do you talk over that client who's wanting to talk to you about nothing but interest rates?
I think you talk to your client, what can you afford to pay? And don't get so wrapped around the actual appraisal and interest rate and all that. Do you like the house? Can you make the payment?
You know, what a novel concept, like, is that check go bounce?
Yeah, it's when you're like, when I used to do my buyer presentations, even though I had the pre-qual letter, we weren't necessarily shopping for houses at the top of that pre-qual letter.
Right.
We were shopping for houses where the mortgage payment was comfortable. And then they still had that extra money that you wanted to put new furniture in there, or if they, you know, whatever else they wanted to do to the house or upgrade the houses, if that mortgage payment felt comfortable. And that's how we base the price range of what we then looked at. It wasn't go to the top of the list.
You know, and that's something that you are going to make your client feel comfortable, that word, but you're also going to make yourself feel comfortable. If you're honest and upfront and say, you know, let's not look at homes that are all the way to your limit, because the first thing that I remember having to buy was a lawnmower, and it was like, a lawnmower for what? Oh.
Have a house in Soap Creek now with a yard.
Now you got a house in Soap Creek with a yard that has to have the grass cut. So, I think it's so important that you know the whole parameter of the person that you're working with, buyer, seller, whatever, buyer, seller, tenant. Oh, buyer, seller, tenant, who's heard that word in the last 3 weeks that didn't hear it for 3 weeks prior to that?
Yeah.
That it, just me?
I've gone on appointments with tenant occupied properties.
Yeah. Get them hands up. It is happening in our market. We are seeing rentals. Why? We're seeing rentals come back into the market that did not sell. That's number one.
Yes.
We're seeing flip houses, and if you'll look at your market, whatever your market is, you know your market, you know your zip code, right? Do you know your zip code? You know your zip code. Go in there and plug your 3 zip codes in and see how many were rentals that are now for sale. Is it okay with the Georgia Real Estate Commission to knock on a door that has a for sale sign?
No. Well, depending on your intentions, you know.
Say it again.
What's the intent behind knocking?
I'm gonna ask how much the house is.
Oh, no.
Even though I'm a real estate agent, I can cross that sign.
You're talking to someone else's client.
Right. So it's okay to do that? No.
No.
Okay.
No.
Or people looking for, lease purchase, I've had some of those calls.
Yeah. I was on the phone, Liz, if you're listening, yeah, I was on the phone last night at 9 o'clock with Liz Cohen, cause she was doing a lease purchase. So, lease purchasers are coming back, and it was a year-long lease purchase.
So we just had the conference down by the airport where we'll get, this is the way to buy houses, right? And then we've also got, properties that have been on the market a little bit longer than what the consumer's seen, so they're thinking that then the seller is willing to do that more often. So this
Yeah.
time of year, the seasonality of real estate, we always see this going into July, August. It's not necessarily for people who are looking for a home for themselves, it's trying to acquire a property in a different way that may not have because they saw it on TikTok or they went to, they paid the $500 for the free advice at the conference, that kind of thing.
Right.
$500 for free.
Yeah, you've seen that in commercials.
Yeah, the first question is always, dude, if you make that much money, why are you telling anybody?
It's so easy, so. but-
Anybody else have any last final questions for Ms. Page?
I have one.
Yes.
So in the market that we are now, you have a listing that is there. I mean, you price it, and we know, the market is kind of slow, so then you don't get the offers, then you come to client, reduce it, and then again, it's sitting there. So by the second reduction that you want to propose, I mean, what are the increments that you, in your experience, would recommend in this market? Because I usually go back and try to see more comps to justify it to my client, because here, I have heard, oh, it has to be in increments of 25,000, but I cannot find comps to justify that big of an adjustment again. So what is the right adjustment that will tell my client this is reasonable and we will, try this? I mean, what is your approach to that in this market?
I love what you said, and you said it about 4 times in this market, because it keeps changing, and
Right.
it'll change tonight before we go to sleep. I promise you that it will change, this market will change. But what I think you need to talk to your clients about are 2 things. And remember that your client is your seller and you're trying to get that seller to come into a reasonable price range. Well, if it doesn't change the monthly payment significantly, if it doesn't change the monthly payment significantly, it's not worth doing the price reduction. It's just showing the public that you didn't know how to price it in the beginning. And that's what I have to say about everything.
So basically, instead of worrying about the increment, you're trying to get it to the next price payment plan, the next, like the client below is what they're comfortable with the payment.
When you
But the
sit
client is
down
the
and
buyer?
when you sit down and you have your buyer consultation, they've got to have a couple of different numbers for you. One is the amount that they have in their pocket. They can literally write a check for you at that very moment for that amount. So that's their down payment in their mind. The other thing that you have to know during a buyer consultation is what is the one thing that is an absolute negative, will not buy it if. Usually, what would that be? Will not buy it.
Payment.
Location,
Cost of living.
price, condition.
Payment,
Still,
payment.
Did somebody say schools?
I said location.
Yeah, location. But here's the thing about it is, it's always location, 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 location to the school, location to work, location to the bank. Okay, so you gotta get to the bank in a hurry to get all that money, cause you know you've got to balance it out before you get your mortgage. Yes,
And Paige, you also said to me about a listing sitting, we talked about it recently, and I'm going to use your words, and that was you have to get more fish in that pond, you have to reach more fish. So, yeah, the price, that monthly payment does make a difference, but if you don't get it to another price point where you've got more fish, you're fishing for the same fish.
you're fishing for the same exact fish, and there is nothing stinkier than old fish.
You have to increase your buyer pool.
You've got to increase the buyer pool. Any other questions?
All right, this,
Not a question, but a statement. On a mastermind call this morning, an agent mentioned in his market center, another agent did a 50% price reduction.
50%? What was the price range?
I think it was from 9 and they did it to 450
Oh,
and
that's
then,
crazy.
you know,
Got bid up.
he called to find out about it and she said, if your offer doesn't start with an 8, don't even bother, because we have 13 offers all over 800.
Wow.
So such a drastic drop piqued all of this attention from buyers, from agents, from people around. And then it immediately bid right back up to over 800, where she wanted it to be in the first place, but she didn't get it there. She had the seller drop it all the way down to bid it back up.
That's a bold.
That was bold, yeah, very bold
Well,
move.
what would happen if she bid $1 over what it was listed for, and that was the only bid that they got?
You have to accept it.
Who said that?
They might feel that, they might.
Who's calling who's calling the, you must sell your house police? Oh, I'm sorry, there is not a you must sell your house police. So just be careful about,
Be careful.
be careful about that, but about who.
Because it would have to be a perfect offer, and the perfect offer is defined in your brokerage agreement or your contract, I'm not sure which one, purchasing, is it defined in the listing agreement?
It's in the,
Purchase and sale.
Purchase and
Okay.
sale. And it must be cash, or it can be crossed out and say that it must be baloney, okay? I want to buy your house with my baloney. Is that a legal contract? Absolutely. I've defined what it is that we want to buy, whatever we're gonna use. And what is the other one we need? Oh, come on, Sherry, we need to know when to show up. And that's it, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay,
There's 5 elements
of contract.
of contract.
Yep.
Closing date.
Yep, nowhere to show up.
Nowhere to show up.
All right, guys, if you ever have questions, go to Andrew. Is there anybody in this room that doesn't know another person in this room? Good, that's good. All right,
Thank you, Ms. Page. You got it?
got it.
Oh, papers.
Thank you, thanks, hon.
All right, next we have this Wednesday, tomorrow, under contract Now What with Eric Decker from 11 to 12, in person only. This should be interesting. Eric doesn't teach much around here, but when he does, it's really fun. So please show up from 11 to 12 tomorrow in the Market Center. Then this is the real estate resolution, Monday, June 23rd, 12 to 3:30. It is at the First Atlanta Market Center. Please go online and register, because from what I understand, the spots are being taken up quickly. It is free, so, and there is lunch, so go do that. And that's about, I think she's teaching about AI, all things AI, and I've heard she's excellent also. Then we've got the mid-year contract changes, the 23rd, this is the virtual class, right, Kimberly? Okay, yes, be on there, I probably will do it again, because decided to do your contracts over and over, and Cheryl King makes the process so much fun, so.
Very good.
If you weren't here last Thursday, please go do this on the 23rd. Supreme Mortgage Lending, Mortgage 101, Wednesday, June 25th, 11 to 12, in person. Not sure what to talk, Mortgages 101, there we go, that's what we're talking about. All of our newer agents, I expect to see y'all in that class. Market Matters, save the date, you got an RSVP, July 30th, oh, they're already putting that out there, awesome. 9:30 to 12, you'll hear more about that in the coming weeks. All right, we have started, we are bringing it back by popular demand, our school supply drive. And I know nobody in this room did it, but we had already started a box, and the box disappeared today.
What?
They took the supplies
Other
back.
news, I have a lot
Remember,
of
somebody needed a box really bad, because they took what school supplies we've already collected, sat them in the big blue chair, and took the box. Somebody needed the box.
I did see a moving company out front this morning.
So guys, here's a list, Kimberly's got it posted around of all the things that we need, and we need the items by July 18th, so then we can get it organized and sent. Yes, sir.
Where's the new box going to be?
We're going to put it in a different spot, we may
Okay,
do it
all right.
inside the office this time, because we had it out in that common area, but no, we're gonna keep it inside the office. Okay, but yeah, I walked in this morning going, somebody took our box. All right, Silverton, you're up, let's rock and roll. Woo!
Hey guys, it's a little warm in here, so please stay awake for about another 4 more minutes if you would. 4 5. 4 6. Sorry, I had, the crowd got a little heavier.
We get one over here?
So guys, we want to talk, I'm Reed with, Silverton Mortgage, and that's Danielle, and she's gonna talk to you guys about a couple of 100% financing options that we have. We've had this for a while, we've utilized it several times with agents here in the office. So if you've got clients that don't have down payments, and this is not Georgia Dream, although we do Georgia Dream, and are pretty decent at it. By the way, side note, did you guys know that Georgia Dream is one program. The Department of Community Affairs is the entity that administrates Georgia Dream and various other loan programs. So the Department of Community Affairs has a VA loan program. It's called Peach Select. And right now, the interest rate on that loan is 4.875%. So right now, when we get a VA client, first of all, on our regular VAs, we don't charge any fees, but the interest rate ain't 4.875. So we are actually looking to see if clients meet the criteria for that. There is a limit on loan size, but it's reasonable. There's a limit on income, but it's like 120,000. So anyway, just a little tidbit for you to know that it's out there.
Yeah, with our 100% financing, these flyers we just gave out, it's in-house underwriting, so we don't need an extended period of time to close. We can offer that on conventional and FHA versus Georgia Dream. They don't offer conventional unless you have 20% down.
Which is
Random.
weird.
I know. So anyways, there's a forgivable option for FHA and a repayable. Obviously, the forgivable will have a higher interest rate, but there's no, is there a limit on the amount, the purchase price? on
FHA loan limits, yeah.
The FHA loan limits, but not like Georgia Dream,
No,
you
no.
have to have.
Mm-mm.
Yeah.
And I have one of those, you mind if I?
Yeah, yeah.
So I did close one of these a couple of weeks ago. The guy had a 643 credit score, and he got 100% financing, which means he got $20,000 on a forgivable second mortgage, and his interest rate was 7.49. I mean, you know, 7.49 is not super for an FHA loan, but at 100% financing, it's not too shabby. And he got in the house. His finances are gonna change over the next year or so, and he'll be able to refinance out of it, but that's not a bad program, yes ma'am. And 0% interest, of course, in the second.
Never mind, I just said, you have to live in a house for 5 years for it to be forgiven.
Yeah.
Are they making payments on it during that 5 years?
Not on the
So it's
second.
a zero unless they sell early, then they have to pay
Correct.
that.
Exactly. And even then, it's just the principal, there's no interest accrual. And conventional, we get the conventional also, 100%
Conventional
financing, so.
option's huge too.
And I priced out one of those a few minutes ago, and it was like 7.375 for a client with great credit. It's not bad at all. Just wanted to give you guys an idea of some of the things that are out there. Any questions? Cool. Brevity is a virtue.
I love it.
Be virtuous.
Thank you. All right, lessons learned. I've already shared what I was gonna share with the lessons learned, and it goes back to when we had our conversation with, when Emily was up here. Guys, I think we're headed back into that era where when you're on that listing appointment and you're gathering the seller's mortgage information, you gotta ask about seconds, and don't just say, hey, is there a second mortgage? You might start out that way, but then it needs to go, do you happen to have any extra, an equity line of credit? Now we're gonna use a script about, did you get any money during COVID? You've got to ask it several different ways for it to be finally clicked that, oh, I might have this that I have to pay back when the house sells. Because if not, I mean, you're gonna be in a situation that our client is in right now where the seller needs to bring $14,000 to the closing table because it was COVID money. So you've just got to ask that seller different ways for it to click that it's, hey. Because I mean, when I was newer, I had a seller that had an equity line of credit. Neither I nor that seller realized that that equity line of credit was attached to the title of the house and had to be paid off when the house sold. They just thought they were getting about $10,000 to finish out the kitchen. They didn't realize it had to be all paid back when we decided to sell the house. So just make sure and ask those questions a couple of different ways, okay, when you're on your listing appointment. So that was my lessons learned for today. And finally, what we got going on? Oh, thanks for coming. He'll be back next week, he's on vacation. Yes.
Before we leave, I just wanna say that Must Ministries is really struggling with their kids' lunches right now.
Yes.
So we posted on the Facebook page, a bunch of us have already shared it. We're gonna be a drop-off point, so if you wanna bring donations, you're welcome to do that, and I can help coordinate that. Or they also have an Amazon link and sends it directly to Must Ministries.
Oh, that's awesome.
So,
You wanna send that out
easier.
today?
I posted on the Facebook page, we can do it again.
Okay.
Jen sent it out too in an email
Okay.
last week.
Okay, perfect, that's awesome, yeah, that's the easy button right there, guys.
But they've served double the amount of kids that they would normally serve, so they are like bare bones when it comes to food right now. So,
Yes, let's go help Must Ministries.
feed those babies.
Feed those babies.
Again.
Summers are always so tough.
Are they down in donations? How are they?